Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a special Thursday edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of Pewter Report. We are energized today because we have got the man of the hour. This guy has been on quite the run here, as has his team winning a Super Bowl in 2020 and then 4 straight playoff appearances, including 3 straight NFC South championships. Much to the chagrin of the New Orleans Saints, Carolina Panthers, and Atlanta Falcons. Talking about the one and only Bucs general manager Jason Licht, who joins myself, Scott Reynolds, and Adam Slivon today on the Pewter Report podcast. Jason, we appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
Yeah, it is. I'm just going to start off by saying that, let's state the obvious here, right? Donovan Smith, Ali Marpet, Alex Kappa, Robert Hainsey, Tristan Wirfs, Luke Gedeke, Cody Mauch. That's 7 out of the 12 offensive linemen that you drafted. And that also includes Graham Barton and Elijah Klein, who really haven't even done anything more than a rookie minicamp and a week's worth of OTAs yet. Those are 7 offensive linemen that you drafted in the first 3 rounds. All of those guys wound up as starters and either helped you win a Super Bowl or a division championship. You're kind of a savant when it comes to drafting offensive linemen. I know you're going to praise your staff of scouts, but you're the GM. You sign up on the draft board. You make the pick. Why are you so good at finding outstanding offensive linemen? Is it your background as a college guard, as a defensive tackle that helps you identify these stud linemen?
Well, you said it right from the beginning. I'm going to give my praise to my staff. So I can't do anything without them, and I've got a great staff. We've had a lot of stability here. We've been together a long time, so they deserve all the credit. But I really enjoy watching offensive linemen. It can be a not so sexy position to watch and evaluate for some. I played offensive line, not my entire career, but in college career, but for a couple years. But I just know it's been instilled in me the value, how important that position, and now even guards and centers, it used to be just left tackle, but every position on the offensive line, how important that is to the success of your team. So not just the physical traits, but what comes with it, the character, the football character. And I know we've talked in the past, Scott, I know you and I and Adam, you've been at the when I've been at the microphone for press conferences, that I've said that the organization, the entire organization, is kind of dependent on that room. Because if that's a great room, if they are gelling the right way and they're getting along, that means they're playing better. And then when the offensive line is playing good, then we all thrive. So it's super important. So I put a lot of time into it.
Yeah, well, it certainly paid off for you. There's no doubt about it. Jason, we have to, since we're talking offensive line, we've got to talk about Tristan Wirfs here for a minute, because she wasn't at OTAs. And I don't think there's any cause for concern, right? I mean, I know, the Penny Sewell contract, is out there, and that he probably got a big smile on his face when he saw that come through. But this is not like Devin White 2.0. So fans, I don't think, should be concerned. The difference between what happened last year and what's happening now is that both sides want an extension done and are engaged in talks, right?
Both sides want an extension done. There's no true hard deadline. Although, we'd love to have it done sooner than later.
Yeah.
But, Tristan is a total team guy. I've spoken with him recently. We understand where each is coming from. So it's just, with all deals, there's some complexities that we just need to kind of work through. And, hopefully we get something done. In the near future.
It helps that he's been around the building, right? You can't kick him out of the weight room, right? He's not staying away.
He's been coming here and working out. Tristan's an unbelievable person, and so I wish nothing but the best for him here. And he's not going to be going anywhere else anytime soon. I can promise you that. So.
And on the topic of offensive linemen, a guy that looks like he's kind of been working out is Cody Mauch, the second-year guy. When you look at Cody, PFF wasn't the kindest to him in terms of his overall grade. But I know on the Pat McAfee show, you mentioned that you're a film junkie. So when you look at the film of Cody Mauch, what do you think his ceiling is, and how do you see him progressing in a second season?
I think he's come a long way. For whatever reason, I don't know if it was I'm not going to name the sites, but kind of like to grade players based on TV. He played every single snap last year, which is, super impressive for a rookie. Every snap, didn't miss one snap.
Yeah.
He, as a rookie coming out of, a smaller school and then getting thrown to the wolves in the NFL, and playing, in the playoffs and all that stuff. And I thought he played well for a rookie. Yeah. I think he's made huge strides compared to last year. He's put on a lot of weight, but a lot of good weight. He's still just as quick, if not a little quicker, than what I saw him last year at this time. So I think the extra weight is going to he's not top heavy. He's not sluggish or anything like that. He's looking very good. He did it the right way. So I think that's going to help him. He's been in the system now for a year, and he's played in the NFL for a year, and that's always huge, the experience. I think we're going to find him having a coming out of his shell a little bit even more this year.
Is that similar to Alex Kappa, where you've got that kind of like long, angular left tackle body in college, and it took Kappa like a year or two to kind of look like a guard, right, and get some junk in the trunk and build up the lower body and all of that stuff?
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, but Kappa now didn't play much his rookie year, so
right.
Cody played the entire season, so it's a good comparison, and you always kind of make a big jump after that second year. He's got the right mindset. He works his tail off, and he's a really smart guy, and he gets along with everybody, and he's a great teammate. So I see a big future in store for him as being a very quality starting offensive guard in the league.
And when you look at the future, and on the other side of the ball, you have a guy that also got his feet wet in Zion McCollum, and he took a big leap in the secondary, kind of cameoed at different positions, whether that was back at safety, playing a little bit of nickel, and now he's kind of been entrusted to be that other opposite starting corner beside Jamel Dean. When you look at Zion, what growth have you seen out of him, and what level of confidence do you have in him being a starting NFL corner?
He made a unbelievable interception today in our 2-minute drill. It was, phenomenal. He's got great ball skills. He wouldn't have done that a couple of years ago. He's just, I don't think his confidence it's so superior compared to where he was as a rookie. I remember looking at him as a rookie in the locker room where he was forced to start a game, and I said, "Hey, you got this. If you're going to make a mistake, go full speed." And it was a little bit of okay, I'm going out here and I'm going to be starting in the NFL. He was up for the task, but he doesn't have that look anymore. He's got the eye of the tiger now. He improved his tackling. He's got tremendous ball skills, like we said, but as you guys know, he's a phenomenal athlete. Really, really excited to see how this what's in store for him this year, because he's got all the tools, that's for sure. And once again, another phenomenal teammate.
Yeah, Jason, you've had the chance to do something that very few general managers get to do. You drafted
That's true.
That's true. Yes, congrats on year 11. You've done something pretty remarkable. You've not only drafted the best wide receiver in franchise history, have actually drafted the second best wide receiver in franchise history.
Not too shabby.
With Chris Godwin. That's a phenomenal 1-2 punch with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Do you ever think about like the historical impact of that in terms of what those two guys have meant to this franchise coming, out of the same regime here?
To be honest, not very often, but when you do sit back and think about it, it is pretty crazy. They're just such special people, and that's the first thing I think about. Our in-house in the current thing, I saw that. I don't watch all. I watch them, but paid a little extra attention to what they did. They do a phenomenal job with that.
They really do. Yeah.
It's and I know the importance of that for the fans. I know the fans love that, the behind the scenes type stuff. But that was all genuine. I got choked up talking about Mike,
Yeah.
doing that interview. Man, he's just meant so much to all of us. I mean, I think every Buck fan here in Tampa or, you know, anywhere they're at, they feel like they know Mike. So it's, you know, just, it's incredible to have those two guys. I remember when we were doing when Chris's contract was up, Mike came up to me I was with Greenberg on the field at practice, and he said, "Hey, if it's about money, you can take some of my money to get Chris to, you know."
Wow.
It was amazing. Those two are just very close. Mike, they're just selfless people.
And that's something that you don't see at the wide receiver position either. When you have so many guys across the league, like they demand trades to go elsewhere and get that big contract. Like Mike and Chris are the opposite of that. And they're two of like maybe the only star receivers in football that have that kind of personality and the way that they carry themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for the other receivers. I know there's some great players and great people that are great characters as well around the league. But all I can tell you about is ours, and I just know I wouldn't trade them for the world right now. That it's we're very fortunate to have them both, and looking forward to this season. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I know they're both. I saw Chris out there today helping Jalen, so McMillan, and they're all very, very excited to work with him. And so is Trey Palmer. And so it starts with those guys because that whole room is just, they want to help, you know, all the young guys be the best that they can. And like I said, selfless.
You're talking about Palmer and McMillan and all these. Let's take a look at your last 3 drafts here. I mean, this is about as good as it gets when it comes to finding starters, Jason. I mean, the color coding here, the players in orange are players the Pewter Report believes will be starters this year, or certainly are in position heading into training camp of possibly being a starter. The players in red are like Logan Hall, right? When you're in that 3-4 base defense, he's probably going to be lined up, you know, opposite Kalijah Cansey and next to Vita Vea, right? So Trey Palmer, Jalen McMillan, they're going to be dueling for that wide receiver 3 role, and you're going to see a lot more 3 receiver sets with Liam Cohen this year. Chris Braswell's in the mix for a bit of playing time for sure, and Tyke Smith might win that nickel job. Bucky Irving, I think, is going to be a nice number 2 in the 1-2 punch with Rashad White. So, I mean, if you look at it, you've got 9 guys that at least according to our list, figure to start. And you got 6 more that figured to have an awful lot of playing time. Just talk to us about this run that you've been on these last couple of years and hitting on so many guys, not just the first and second round guys, but finding really good starters later in the draft.
Well, you've heard me talk about my staff, who I have full trust in, and we all know each other so well now, and they know what I like. They know what the vision that I have for this team, and they know how well I work with. Well, we all work with the coaches here and Todd, and what his vision is for the team, because that's really you're serving your head coach no matter where you're at. You're trying to give him what he feels like he needs to win. And Todd and I have worked so well together here, and hats off to him for our staff. Loves the fact that he's not afraid to play rookies, and he's not afraid to throw them out there and put them in starting positions and play them. And that's, I think that's part of the key. A lot of coaching staffs will be afraid to play a young player. They'd rather stick with a veteran, even though he's not as talented. But that's not the case. I mean,
Jason, Antoine Winfield Jr., his rookie year, no preseason games, right? Because of COVID. And he goes up against Drew Brees on the road in his first game as a starter, you know, as a rookie. Yeah. I mean, that speaks to what you're saying about Todd there.
And getting them ready to do it. I mean, Antoine's a special guy. We could talk for half an hour about him alone. I think he's only had 1 mental error since I can only remember 1 post-game meeting that we've had with the coaching staff where we talk about, you know, things that happen and where the errors came and all that. I think he's had 1 mental error in 4 years. It's amazing.
That's crazy.
I really that one's a little suspect too. So
is this a product of continuity at its best, right? Todd has been here since 2019, so you know the type of players that he's looking for on the defensive side for sure. And your scouting staff, I mean, listen, the league is just sleeping on guys like Spytek and Beal and McCartney to your advantage, right? It's not going to always be this way. You lost J-Rob a couple years ago to become a general manager of the Tennessee Titans. You're going to lose some guys, but in the meantime, is this just the continuity of you guys can watch college film and say, yep, that's a Buccaneer.
It is. And, you've heard me talk about all the guys that you've just mentioned, including Mike Greenberg and Jackie Davidson, on the, doing the salary cap and the contracts and all the things that they do, the analytics and things. But there's more than that. There's people behind them, I guess, I don't want to say pecking order. They're all very important to me. And we hire young scouting assistants, both, male and female, and we groom them and we throw them into the fire, and they it's either, live or die. And most of them have been living, and they've, risen through the ranks. Have made a bunch of promotions again this year.
Yeah.
We've got some new faces and that moved up to scout, pro scout, college scouts, assistant directors. And most of them started off, almost all of them started off as scouting assistants.
Yeah. When you look at the players on this list here with asterisks by them, Logan Hall and Kate Otten back in 2022, Cody Mauk, Yaya Diaby, Payne Durham, Trey Palmer last year. This year, Graham Barton and Tyke Smith. Jason, those are all of Pewter Report's Bucs best bets. When it comes to scouting, I know you've got some able scouts and fantastic staff, but do you look at our Bucs best bets and say, you know what, let's go with Pewter Report here. They say this guy might be the tiebreaker between these two. What do you say?
I do look at your mock drafts, and we oftentimes say, they know what they're talking about here. They're on.
That. I was saying that, yes, but thank you.
You guys do a hell of a job. Got a lot of respect for you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
To say that that like in the draft room, let's move this guy up because they have him there. We're never going to say that. We're never going to say somebody influenced.
Just a couple spots.
Maybe a tick.
Yeah. Okay.
No, but got a lot of respect for what you do and how you guys look at players. Obviously, you don't have the resources that we do with the boots on the ground, finding out about the the whole person and the traits and things that sometimes that play a huge key in
no doubt.
What we draft. But it starts with the film, and you guys, it's obvious you guys are film junkies as well.
We are. We love the draft. There's no doubt. We're at the Senior Bowl. We're at the Combine and all that. So we love it. You know that. Go ahead, Adam.
I kind of want to circle back when you were talking about Antoine Winfield Jr. and the fact that he's special. His new contract kind of signifies that, and him becoming the highest paid defensive back in NFL history. When you look at him as both a player and a person, what qualities really come to mind about him being that special player?
Well, I don't know where to start. He's unbelievable passion for the game. He's always prepared for every scenario. I talked about the coaches talk about the mental errors. He's had basically none because he's so prepared. It's so important to him. It's been passed down to him. I'm sure, he's got a great father to look up to, and that was a great player. And he's a natural leader, more like every player is different, a little bit more like a Levante type. Talk when he needs to talk, and when he does, people listen. I think he's becoming more and more vocal as it goes on, but just a great communicator though on the field. So, and one of the best tackling safeties I think I've ever been around.
Yeah.
If not the best.
Jason, when you go back and look, right, he made the sack fumble in week 1 against the Vikings, but I think what goes kind of unnoticed about that game was I want to say he made 3 touchdown saving tackles, a couple on Justin Jefferson in that game, they're just kind of routine tackles, but if he doesn't make it, that's a touchdown, right?
And to the person watching TV would maybe think that it was a busted coverage on his part, which may be why he gets graded low in some services. I won't name names, but actually it's him going and saving the day.
Yeah.
But talk about he's won games for us single-handedly with, saving the Carolina, last game, the fumble at the goal line. I mean, those are tapes that you want to show for generations of this is how you play with effort. This is never say die. And that's kind of the way he plays all the time.
And you mentioned like him being a sure tackler. You don't see many safeties get 122 total tackles in a season. And then adding in, just sprinkling in a few forced fumbles, few sacks, interceptions. He wants to get better, but it's like, how much better could he get?
Well, believe it or not, I think he can get better. So that's the scary thing. It's I've said it, especially now that he's signed his contract, I'll say it, even more. Like, I think this guy's could be on a Hall of Fame trajectory here. So it's pretty cool as a Bucs fan and being with the Bucs and this isn't me pounding my chest. This is my I give the credit to my staff, but as a Bucs fan, to know that we have players like him and Tristan and Mike Levante, it's
Godwin.
It's Godwin. I mean, I'm leaving people out here. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and mentioned Chris Godwin. He's heading into a contract year, and he's looking to ball out the same way that Mike Evans did and getting another contract with Tampa Bay. And it sounds like Brian McClendon said that he's going to be going back into the slot and playing more of a throwback role in Liam Cohen's offense. How excited are you to see Chris Godwin and keeping up that production next season? He's had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Not quite like Mike Evans having 10, but he's been really consistent and productive. And how do you see that kind of unfolding?
I'm very excited about it. It brought back flashbacks of when I was with the Cardinals and we hired Bruce, Michael Bidwell and Steve Keim, my boss at the time, hired Bruce as the head coach. And first thing he says, I'm putting Larry in the slot and he's going to revive his career and he's going to extend his career. And that's kind of the way I view Chris. Like, he's got a skill set that's like built for that. He's he's very tough. He's very instinctive with the ball in his hands. He's very slippery. He's, you see him on those tunnel screens. It's like an automatic first down almost every time he hits it. So I think he's going to really, especially in this new system with Liam's system, I think he's going to thrive in there.
One of the players we didn't see on Tuesday at the OTAs was Vita Vea, but Todd Bowles and Casey Rogers have both said this guy's lost some weight. How much weight has he lost? And how important is it for a bigger guy like Vita at age 29 now to, as he gets older, to kind of slim down a little bit to kind of prolong his career and either maintain his excellent level of play or even get better as a result?
I think it's very important. When we had Tom Brady, obviously, I think everybody got all the players got a firsthand look at just how dedicated he was to taking care of his body and how it's extended his career. Like historically, I mean, in a historic, fashion. So Vita last year, after the loss in the playoffs in Detroit, as we were leaving the locker room, everybody was, let's just say, not feeling very good. The last game of the season is always tough, even if it's the Super Bowl. I've been a part of that, and you lose that. He grabbed me and said, "I'm going to take care of my body, and you're going to see a new me." Wow. And he had already planned on this. The conversation didn't go much further because we were just all kind of packing up, and it's just a kind of a surreal moment. Yeah. Not knowing what the future held for a lot of people at the time. A lot of things are going through your head, but I did know that he meant that. So, we saw him a couple weeks ago. We'll see him here in a couple weeks, mandatory, and he looked fantastic. So, I think he's very dedicated to extending his career and playing at a high level, and want to take care of his family, but also he's a big team. He's a great teammate. He wants to win here. So
and even when Bruce was here, Vita would kind of use the offseason program, the OTAs, and even the first part of training camp to kind of get in shape. And he's just a big, island guy, and he kind of used that time to kind of whittle down to playing shape by the time football season came. But the fact that he's so far ahead of the game now, apparently that's got to be really good news for you guys.
Well, he's been training with Sue, so Sue has taken him under his wing.
Okay.
So, and Dominican is, phenomenal person, and he knows how to. If anybody knows how to take care of themselves, it's Dominican. So those two are very, very close, and so he's been helping him out, which is awesome.
Very cool.
And it's not just players looking to improve heading into next season. It's also the coaching staff. And when you look at Todd Bowles, do you see him having grown from 2022 to 2023 and kind of learning like some lessons from what kind of was an up and down season last year? I mean, at one point the Bucs were 4-7, having lost 6 of 7, and then they turned it around. And then they ended the season as one of the hottest teams in the league at 5-1, heading into the playoffs with some momentum. In what ways have you seen Todd Bowles kind of grow as a head coach over the past couple of seasons?
First of all, he and we have a great working relationship. It's never been better. We, as time goes on, work with somebody long enough, you start to know each other's, what they like, what they don't like, the right time to approach each other about certain things, how to argue with each other. And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah.
And he's phenomenal. We've been in terms of working together. And I think he's gotten, he's really, really good at telling the staff what he's expecting, his expectations with the staff.
Yeah.
And we've made some changes. We've got an almost entirely new offensive staff, and it's been really fun to see Todd, working with them. I'm not saying that we didn't work well together with the old staff, but there's new staff. It's, telling them what his vision is, what he's looking for, but then also he gives them a lot of autonomy. So I think the offensive coaches love that too. So it's it's been great to see him kind of grow in his role. I mean, he's been a head coach before. But I think it's just getting better and better.
To pick up on that point, when you guys are 4-7 last year, the team didn't really flinch or splinter, right? I mean, we're in the locker room every day. We're looking for signs of like, wow, this ship is sinking, and it was only sinking in the record column. It wasn't in the locker room, right? The team still believed like, hey, until we're mathematically out of it, we got a shot. And sure enough, that 5-1 run came. And I imagine that's where the high character aspect that you guys look for comes into play. And so my question to you is, in the days of the transfer portal and the NILs, how much emphasis do you guys put on guys like Graham Barton, who, he could have his junior year, senior year, taken more NIL money at a bigger program, and he decided to stay at Duke. Chris Braswell, he's playing behind 2 first-round outside linebackers, defensive ends, right? And Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, and he decided to wait his turn and learn from those guys. And he even said, hey, man, I'm going up against J.C. Latham every day. It's making me better, right? So how much, when you hear those stories and you're looking at guys that don't transfer, that stick it out, the guys that stay and fight rather than take the flight, because that really is what you're looking for, right? When it comes to guys that, when it is 4-7 and you got enough of those guys that stay and fight, you can turn it around.
It's very important to us. I'm not saying that we wouldn't take a player that transferred.
Like Tyke Smith transferred from West Virginia to Georgia. Yeah.
No, at all. And it's not a knock against them if they do. There's a story behind every situation. So, but the fact that, we put such an emphasis on the character, the guys that want to fight through it, the guys that want to earn their spot. It's paying dividends for us. So, you just mentioned it. So last year when I was talking about this actually yesterday with the rookies, I had a meeting with them, and when we were at the 4-7 point in the season, and we were, what got us through that is, first of all, Todd. He's very stoic. He's very the same every day. He steadied the ship. We've got great leaders in Mike Evans and Levante and Chris and Baker, Tristan, even Luke, and I mean, we've got a great locker room. But one thing that went a little bit under the radar was the close knit relationship that all of our rookies had last year.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to listen to the veterans, and the veterans are going to tell them, hey, let's kind of put them in their place or whatever it is, guide them through.
Yeah.
I mean, put them in their place is probably the wrong phrase, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But they also they're not hanging out with them all the time, but the rookies hang out together a lot in our organization because of all the meetings that we have with them that Duke Preston does with them, on a weekly basis. And those guys, Kalijah, Yaya, Cody, Jose, those guys are around each other constantly, and they just had such the right mindset about this. Hey, we need to do what we need to do what we can to help this team get through it. Yeah. So, that was a big part of us getting through that is those guys, and they were playing major roles too, most of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You have Yaya, who came on as your leading sacker, 7.5, and we saw Kalijah erupt with the sack and a half in the postseason. It really came on, down the stretch too.
Yep. And you look at these two guys, and they're like best buds, Kalijah and Yaya, already.
Oh yeah, there's you don't see one without the other, and they're here way beyond just the hours that they're supposed to be here. So it's they put a lot of time into on their own. So it's you see what they do on the field, but it's a product of not just being talented, but it's a product of their hard work.
Yeah.
And somebody else putting in a lot of hard work on the defensive side of the ball is Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. And entering a contract year, there's a lot of competition at the outside linebacker room.
You flooded that
position.
Room, dude.
Yeah, you got Chris Braswell, as you mentioned. Jose Ramirez and Marquise Watts are two guys that you've mentioned that you're high on. And just looking at the room as a whole, where do you see Joe Tryon-Shoyinka really fitting in, and how effective do you think he can be? Is there still another level that's really close to being unlocked?
And what does he have to do to get a second contract? Like, what are you looking for from him to, because you didn't pick up his 5th-year option. He was the only guy that you have a first-round pick,
Well, yeah, and that's not the first time that's happened with a first-round pick around the league, and some of these guys have, taken that they actually like it. They have a chance to prove themselves, and then they have a chance to get a big contract earlier than what they would have if they were had a 5th year. So he does all the right things in terms of his work ethic, in terms of his attitude, in terms of all those things. We just need to see some more consistency on the field. Mm-hmm. And so far, I know it's just underwear football right now, but it's so far he's been very, very good. Now there's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
And I thought last year when he did go into a role of being more of a rotational role, I thought
he played better.
I thought he played better.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can hang your hat on that. That's those guys get paid a lot of money too, and you can be a hell of a player in like a 6-man role like that too. So,
and somebody else that's kind of been filling more of a bench role throughout his Bucs tenure is Kyle Trask. And when you look at the team drafting him back in 2021 to kind of maybe be on hand to be that Tom Brady successor, when you look at the process, it was sound and kind of reminiscent of Green Bay and San Francisco really plotting their future with a quarterback. So far, Kyle Trask, he hasn't seen the field a ton, but what are you looking to see out of him this year to potentially re-signing him next year? And when you look back at the pick, what are your thoughts on selecting Kyle?
You guys know me by now. I will tell you where I made a mistake, and I will admit it and say, I've learned from that. I'm not making any apologies for taking Kyle Trask.
Yeah.
You've got teams that have in back-to-back years taken quarterbacks in the top 10. And it's a premium position. You want to hit on it. You get desperate. Teams get desperate. You see what teams give up in trades. You see what they do in money and guaranteed money, all these things to get their quarterback. So to take one in the 2nd round, I have no apologies for that. He's going to be ready if he has to go in. I wouldn't be surprised if he thrived if he went in, because he's he's learning a new system again, but it's pretty close. It's close in a lot of ways as our last system. His entire career, he's been one that has had to wait his turn, and then once he got the opportunity, he took off. So whether he's you know how important a backup quarterback is. Would love to have him for a long time. Hopefully, like the best case scenario is Baker keeps thriving the way he is, and keep Kyle. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. You know, players seem to want to get their opportunity. So it happened with Mike Glennon. I wanted to keep Mike Glennon around, and you know, he got his shot in Chicago. So we'll see what happens.
You mean you weren't going to match the Bears' offer for Mike Glennon?
I tried to do a deal on a napkin in a bar one time in the hotel lobby with him, and he wasn't didn't want anything to do with it. He
wasn't receptive.
He was great. He was great.
Yeah, you know, I was going to say this. You know, you're one of. This is a question I've been waiting to ask you a long time. You're one of the few general managers who actually watch the games from the sideline, not up in the booth per se. I mean,
not all the time, but
not all the time, but most of the time you are, especially at home, right? And how did that come about? And you also let Mike Greenberg and John Spytek, Rob McCartney, your personnel guys, you know, assistant general managers on the sideline too. What are the advantages that you've experienced over the last couple of years from being on the sidelines? The interactions you've had with players, and has it helped you do your job better as a result?
Yeah, there are some pluses to it, some advantages that you can get out of it. It all started during the COVID year, 2020, when we went to Vegas, and they weren't the box. I had a box, and there weren't enough suites, believe it or not, even though there's nobody in that they were going to let our owners sit in. So I gave up my box. It wasn't a suite, but a press box area to ownership. And I said, I'll just go down to the sideline.
Yeah. So
I don't know if they weren't ready, what the whole story was. We have a good relationship with the Raiders. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus or anything like that. So I went down to the sideline, and we won the game. And I said, well, you know, I'll do it next week too. And then we just kept winning. Yeah. So it became kind of a little bit of a superstitious thing. So did it. But while I was down there, I got to see how the players would talk to each other, how they would react to the coaches talking to them. I never put a headset on. I never got involved in any kind of game time decision or anything like that. I leave that to the coaches. Just kind of stood back, watched it. And to be honest with you, it's just a lot more thrilling to be down there.
Yeah. Like you're in it.
You're in it, and win or lose. And it just became a lot of fun. But now in the last year, I kind of did a little bit down there, but I also find some advantages of watching it from up above as well. So I kind of make a game time decision every week on game day, whether or not I'm going to go up or down.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine too that there are some coaches that may not feel comfortable with the general manager. It's not like you're looking over Bruce's shoulder or Todd's shoulder, you know, but at the same time, they may not want the pressure of their boss being down there. But you've had that relationship with Bruce and with Todd over the last couple of years. Is that something like, let's say Todd, you know, let's say you guys win it all and Todd's going to retire and get up to the sunset and you have a new coach. Is that something that you broker with him or bring up in terms of, hey, you know, I do like what I want to watch the game from the sidelines, and you know, is that something that's kind of on the table?
It's a good question. I never thought about it because hopefully things keep, you know, trotting along here the way they are. We keep winning, and Todd stays here. So, but you know, I've known Todd, like you said, I've known Todd as long as I've known Bruce.
Right.
Go back to Arizona together. So he knows don't have any hidden agenda by being down there or any of my people being down there as well. So I mean, I actually enjoy talking to Todd every once in a while on the sideline. I don't say anything to him about, you know, hey, you should do this. I mean, who am I to say that? You know, I'm not.
You don't say, hey, Todd, call a timeout in the first half.
No. So, but I guess now that you brought it up, let's just say we win, you know, the next three. We win 3 more Super Bowls and Todd retires. With the next head coach, if I'm still here, lucky enough to be here, I would probably tell him, hey, it's non-negotiable. I reserve the right to be down there if I want to be down there.
Gotcha.
And so I kind of wanted to ask you about like some of the uniform combinations that the Bucs have been wearing. When you start the season, it makes a lot of sense. The Bucs wear white uniforms, right? With like the Tampa Sun, Assume heading into next season, starting off against Washington, that's going to be the case. But then it kind of transitions into wearing red uniforms, maybe the creamsicles, all pewter. What is the process in deciding uniforms week by week? And is that something that you have input in?
I get the combination kind of schedule, and I look at it, and I'm asked if I like it, but I don't put that together. I'm not the one to talk to about fashion and the combinations of
Who's in charge? Is it a Glazier call? Is it a Todd Bowles call? Is it equipment manager?
We have some people that are very good at that and understand, and there's reasons behind everything, and I trust the business side and ownership and things. And now Todd does get he can have his piece too, but really, I mean, as football guys, I'll be honest with you, we're like, hey, just tell us what we're wearing. Let's just go out and kick some ass on the field. Okay. So I know it's a big thing, though. I know, just knowing that, I have kids that, are 15, 13, and 10. And especially my boys, they love to see what jerseys we're wearing this week. And I know how big of a deal it is, and people love to see that. So, and I know the players like certain combinations more than others, but it's I know how big of a deal it is, but I leave it. That's not what I was trained to do. So
you're a football guy. Here's a football question, right? The Eagles have been really aggressive when it comes to signing players to extensions early, right? They've seen some real savings from a cap standpoint by doing some of those early deals. I think that the one time it famously came back to bite them was Carson Wentz, right? I mean, you can't win them all, but you did that with Vita Vea, for example, in December of 2021. You already picked up his fifth-year option, but he didn't even get to the fifth-year option, right? And now you're kind of getting ahead of the game with Wirfs a little bit, still going to cost a lot of money. But at the same time, you've also been kind of a wait-and-see kind of guy. You've been a one-year prove-it-deal guy. Shaq Barrett comes to mind. Baker Mayfield comes to mind. Randy Gregory comes to mind. And then, of course, having a player like Devin White playing your fifth-year option, Jameis Winston playing your fifth-year option. So how do you kind of balance, and even Mike Evans last year playing on his contract year, in Winfield too, how do you balance the, let's take it all the way out and prove it, and I want to see it to gauge your worth, versus, wow, like if we strike early like we did with Vita right now is the 15th highest paid defensive tackle, $17.75 million. He's got 3 years left on his deal. He's a bargain for you guys right now. So what is the thought process in terms of striking deals early and waiting a bit?
There's a lot of factors that go into it. You look at your cap and your cap situation 3 years out all the time. And it kind of depends on what the room you have at the time. It kind of depends on, what you feel about the player. It also, there are times when you can do a deal early and maybe the players, you're going to get a discount, but you want to make sure that the player's happy too.
Yeah.
And, isn't a couple years later saying, I shouldn't have done that. So there's just a lot of factors that go into it. I know that we, with, Mike Greenberg and Jackie, working with him, we were one of the first a few years ago to start, everybody did 5-year extensions all the time or longer. And we went to the 3-year extensions for a lot of players. And we saw a lot of, that was an advantage to us as we moved forward with some guys. Now, some of the guys you want to do longer terms, especially some of the bigger money guys. Yeah. So it just kind of depends. It kind of depends, on every situation. I'm more of a, let's just see, let's make sure that we have what we need for this year, and let's go, and I'll worry about it later. Sometimes you want to see what you got. Sometimes you want to make sure, depending on their age or whatever it is, that you're willing to, hey, if we're let them play out their last year, they kicked ass. We're gonna have to pay a little bit more. It's fine, but it was worth the I don't want to say the risk, but worth
the wait.
Worth the wait.
Yeah. And when you look at like players getting, like investing in players and making big deals, one position that the Bucs have invested in that not a lot of teams have is a center position. And the Bucs, like you guys have signed Ryan Jensen twice on 2 different contracts and now drafting Graham Barton in the first round. When you look at the center position, it seems like you value it more than other teams. Why is it so important? And do you think like the industry is like too low on the value of what a good center is?
I just know how important that center quarterback relationship is, especially when you have the centers identifying a lot of the fronts. And in our system, you know, you want a smart, very smart football guy that takes a lot of the, you know, things away from the quarterback if he's able to do that. And, you know, you want somebody in the middle there that can play firm and can play, you know, set the pocket. And I think it's as important as a guard position, in my opinion. So I don't know if I value it more than other teams, but we certainly value it a lot. And taking Graham Barton and you know, hopefully it works out at center. So far, so good.
Yeah.
I think it's going to, you know, pay dividends for us down the road.
Well, and speaking of center, I did an SR's Fab Five a couple of weeks ago where I listed like your best free agent signings, right? And obviously Tom Brady's number one. I mean, he's only picked one team in free agency, Jason. It was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so he's got to be number one. But then you took issue a little bit because I think I said Shaq Barrett number two. I mean, 1 year, $5 million, you know, and he's, you know, 19.5 sacks, helped you guys win a Super Bowl. And I think I had Ryan Jensen at 3, and you said, no, Jensen's too low. And you really opened my eyes a little bit because
that's not to take away from Shaq because,
right.
Oh my God, Shaq has been, he'll go down in history as one of the best Buccaneers.
Yeah. I
just meant that, you know, just don't, maybe you tie and maybe they're tied for second. It's, you know, Jensen was it was just a big hit. Those big money free agency signings are risky.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the guaranteed money and all the things that go involved with him, you're resetting the market a lot of times, which we did with Ryan,
right?
Position. And he was everything and plus more of what we wanted from a leadership and from just a nasty disposition and just setting the tone for that, our offense, in terms of playing through the whistle, through the echo of the whistle.
Yeah.
And, just, you know, all those things that kind of bled into the entire offensive line.
Yeah, he really was a culture tone setter, right?
Yeah.
Culture driver. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, just a couple more for you, Jason. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
At this stage of the game, would you rather continue to be the underdog when it comes to the division? I mean, and have your divisional opponents just be favored ahead of you? The disrespect keeps on happening, right? It was the Saints last year with Derek Carr. It's the Falcons this year with Kirk Cousins. I know you keep receipts, but at this stage of the game, like, how much of this do you really want to be the underdog, or do you finally want the Bucs to get the respect that they deserve?
That's a great question. I think I'd love to see the organization get the respect it deserves. But at this point, the way that our team is made up, I feel like we like being the underdog. And I thought of the motivation that goes with it. I personally like it. I know that I've talked about how I love to keep receipts. It's all just fun for me. It's not being as petty as it looks.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a fascinating thing here in Tampa that Levante David doesn't get the respect he deserves.
Yeah.
Mike
Evans a long time, right?
Took him a long time. Yeah. I don't know why that is. I mean, we've won the last 5 years. I think we're like the third best team in terms of playoff appearances and second best in terms of Super Bowls, and are tied for one. And our record has been up there above a lot of these teams that are nationally renowned and talked about as being favorites every year. So it's, it is what it is, but at this point I'm used to it, and I think we all are, and I think we kind of thrive under it.
One thing just to pick up on that, when you look at Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, right? They've won 3 Super Bowls now, including back-to-back. Does what you guys did at Raymond James Stadium in Super Bowl 55, does it sparkle a little bit more now not that you were the only team to beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl and Kansas City. It's not just Mahomes, it's the entire Chiefs organization and the team. But to do it the way you did, you dismantled a very good Kansas City Chiefs team. Does it add a little bit more shine to the Super Bowl trophy now?
Yeah, it does. I mean, that they're the best team in the NFL. I mean, when I said before tied for one, I meant tied in. We're tied in the NFC. They're the
right.
We've won 3 Super Bowls now. They're the best team in the NFL in this, this era.
Yeah.
But to know that we beat them the way we did, it's always brings a smile thinking about that game. It's it's phenomenal. The defense played lights out. That game plan that Todd put together should go in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. So it's it does. To answer your question, the long version, but the short version, yes.
And I have to ask this question. When you look at, like, you guys keep thousands of scouting reports on different players, like through the pre-draft process. What does your receipt folder look like? Like, how many receipts are you keeping in that office?
Well, it's all digital, so I have it's all in my screenshots and in an album on my phone. So, but people could be keeping receipts on me too. So I understand how this goes. So,
you're a good sport. Yeah.
So there could be reporters and writers saying, I'm sitting here raving about certain players, and then they can send that back to me too. So, but I've always thought a fun podcast to do when I'm done with this job and I'm out of the league would be to just sit and talk about the reporters every week. Say, did you hear what he said? And this girl is really doing good.
Oh, that's good.
Now, but and then just weekly, just talk about them and have my rankings, my power rankings of and things like that. So I think that might be something I'm looking into.
Yeah, I got to watch what I write even more carefully now. I don't want to have people reports slip down to power rankings. Yeah. Exactly. Jason, last thing for you here. In your estimation, what second-year Bucs players are you really kind of expecting to break out this year? And I know it's only been the first week of kind of the underwear football, the flag football out there, the OTAs, but are there any sleepers that are starting to emerge where, like, you can't wait to see them in pads in camp? Like, we kind of noticed Marquise Watts this time last year, right? Where you're like, wow, he's a new guy. Can't wait to see this guy in pads. And, he certainly kind of lived up to that and has a bright future. But in terms of the second-year players and then some of these behind-the-scenes guy,
I think Marquise is one to keep an eye on. He's put on some really good weight, looks bigger and stronger, but still just cat-like quickness coming off the corner. And his bend and how low he plays to the ground is phenomenal. But Payne looks like he's gained some quickness and some speed and some strength. So I'm really excited to see him this year. And as he's made some phenomenal catches last year. I think he's going to. And then Trey Palmer looks like he's taking a little bit of a step up too. So those are the guys I'm excited to see progress here as we get through training camp.
Yeah, we got a couple super chats here, Jason. We wanted to recognize these people. Gaming Reaper, thank you to all at Pewter Report, and thank you, Jason, for all the great work you and the team have done year in and year out, LFG. And we appreciate that, Gaming Reaper. And Paul, a.k.a. Florida Dreamhouse. Mr. Light, former Browns fan here. It's refreshing to see a team with a competent front office. Thank you for saving Baker Mayfield. It's a privilege to be a Bucs fan, and I'm excited for 2024.
Awesome.
That's good stuff. And last but not least, Nathan Elliott. Will Jason Licht be on the 2025 Buccaneer fan cruise?
Oh, it's always at a bad time for me. It's always during free agency.
Yeah, it is. And it's right after the combine. We already checked the schedule. We're going to be on it because we don't have to worry about free agency. We'll report on it, but we don't have to do the deals like you guys have to. But
it sounds like a blast.
It's 7th through the 10th of March. Yeah. And they do have Wi-Fi. So, I mean, you can have Granny back there at home base, and you and Blair can be on the cruise. I'm sure there's like a little, like a Wi-Fi area where you can, we'll go ahead and do the deal. Get it done. A little Mai Tai or
I'll give it some thought.
Pina colada in your hand.
Yeah, I'll give it some thought.
Yep. And last but not least, Payne Gusto, $2. My first live chat, and it's with Jason Licht, LFG Bucs Nation. So that's awesome. Jason, we really appreciate not just your time today, but you've always been outstanding with the media, whether it's just, the helping us like fill in some blanks with some questions, like you give really detailed answers at your press conferences. And we really appreciate that. You got a great working relationship, not just with Todd Bowles, not just with the players and your staff, but also with the media too. And also with the fans. I mean, I think they've really embraced your public persona. They love when you get a little feisty on social media at the same time. So always appreciate having you on the Pewter Report podcast.
I appreciate you guys. I do. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for today's Pewter Report podcast. Want to thank Jason Licht, for
Thank you,
Scott
Jason.
Reynolds, and and Adam Slivon. We'll see you next week. No show on Monday. That's going to be a holiday, but we'll have podcast Tuesday where there'll be another Bucs OTA that we'll be open to checking out, and then a podcast on Wednesday and Thursday. So for Adam Slivon, for Jason Licht, I'm Scott Reynolds saying